Okay, I'm going to do a couple of videos here. The end goal of this is going to be to create a little bit more of an autonomous robot out of the Eddy, but we're going to start with the Kinect code that we wrote in the Follow Me service and make it a little more useful, and that's our first goal. And so to do that, we're going to go through a couple of videos and to give some brief introductions for things that you need to know in order to get to the Kinect service point. So the first one we're going to talk about is the activity box. So today we're going to talk about an introduction to the activity box and how we use it to create a VPL service. In the next video we're going to do an introduction to manifests, not very deep into there, but some things that you're going to need to know. And finally we're going to create a service using the Kinect code we wrote in the Follow Me service, or in the Follow Me project, and build a nice service that you can use. So anyway, that is our goal, and we will proceed with the activity box. Okay, so we're going to talk about the activity box today. It's located in your basic activities, but the idea of this is we want to use it to create a service. So first we're going to take a quick look at a common service. I'm going to use the timer as an example. We'll bring it into the diagram area, and you see the timer box has three interfaces to the outside, I guess you would say. You have the incoming request, you have the outgoing response, and you have the notification. Now your incoming request for a timer, for example, would be something like, please set the timer to 500 milliseconds. And that would come to the input side of the timer box. The response to that would be something like, well, let's just look here. We'll get a calculate box here and see what an immediate response to the timer would look like. So we'll come across here and go into calculate, and here you see the possibilities. We have successes and faults for things like get current time, set current time, things like that. So the response doesn't have anything to do with the time you set. It's in reaction to the thing that you tried, or the action you tried to perform. If we go from the notification portion of the timer in, you see things like tick and timer complete, and so that is something that is reaction, something that happens later after the timer service has been running. So those are the basic actions of a service, and we'll just get rid of those because we don't need them. Okay, so we're going to look at the activity box. We'll drag it into the diagram area, and you see it looks a lot like any of the other basic activities, but let's give this a name. To make it a little more descriptive, and we'll double click it, and when I double click it you see things start looking a little different. We have these familiar three interfaces to the outside: the input, the outgoing response, and the outgoing notification. We also have a little icon here that we can click, and this icon defines the message flows and variables that come in from the outside and that leave the activity box. And so we're going to call, you can have multiple actions, that gets a little more advanced, but we're going to just have one, but we're going to call it divide. And then we have to set our input values, and our input values would be numerator with type integer, and that's fine, and a denominator also with an integer type. And the output value would be the result. And that looks pretty good. And so now our activity is set for inputs and outputs, and we just need to actually do the logic. And this is, as you can tell, this is going to be a math example, fairly simple. We're going to take our numerator and divide it by our denominator and put the result out there. And we want our value coming out of the calculate box, and all is good. And so we're going to build a little unit test here for this. So if we're going to do a division, we need a couple of data blocks, and we need to give those data blocks a value. Okay, and as you remember from previous videos, in VPL, when you have two entry points on a diagram, you are actually spawning two different threads or two different message flows. And that means that the message flow containing the integer 100 is going to start, and the message flow with 10 is going to start. Now we need these to be in our division activity at the same time, and because we have to have both of them to do the calculation. So that's where the good old join comes in. It waits for all messages coming inbound before it gives a combined output flow, and there we go. And let's make this a little more descriptive. We'll call this numerator and the denominator, and we'll take it into the division. Now you can see sometimes if you're a little fast, it has not picked up, VPL has not picked up the name change for the second join. And let's see if we can get it to do that. No. So when that happens, you close out and you try it again. And now we can also set it over here, so we'll see here it should have picked it up this time, and it did. So not sure why that happens. It's just something you kind of get used to. So we're going to, if I can spell it, I'm going to go to our standard go to I want to see something box, the simple dialog box, and we're going to take the output, which we called result. It's going to go to the alert dialog, and of course we want the result value that we defined inside the activity. If everything went well, let's run it and see. Our DSS node starts, and we have the value 10. Very good, brilliant. So we're done, right? Well, one last thing. What if our divisor or our denominator is 0? What's going to happen then? Well, of course you cannot divide by 0, and so our result will be an empty dialog box. That's not exactly the kind of output that we want for an error inside of our service. And really, I'm just trying to generate something that's more of a notification. So I'm setting up this false scenario here. So we're gonna have to do something differently. So we're going to break this connection, and we're going to take an if box and bring it in here, and we'll say if the denominator is equal to 0, we're going to do something, and if it's not, then we're good, and the flow is going to come in here to calculate. You see calculate has an exception marker there, the exclamation point, and because it didn't have an input, but now it does, and it's happy. And so we want to trigger an exception if the denominator is 0. Now there's two ways we can do this. I'm going to do it a little bit more visually. Get the data box, come in here, and so one thing that we're working on the notification. Remember, we set the input and the output for the request and result, but we never did anything for the notification. So let's go back here, and we'll go to notifications. That's the second tab in that box that we were in, and we're going to call it a math error. I didn't really want that on there. And we're going to add one divide by 0, and we need that to be a Boolean. So there we are. We're okay. We're going to change this to a bool, and output it. Data value to math error, and we want the value, and now we have notification. And so let's go back to our diagram. Now you'll see our division activity still only has an input and an output. So the activity or a service can have multiple personalities. It can do multiple things, and you do that by making copies of it. So we're going to copy it and paste it, and you see now we have our activity that has both an input and an output and a notification. And we can prove that this works by copying and pasting our simple dialog box. Math error to alert dialog, that looks good. Let's do it directly, and we'll just say math error. Okay, and we'll run it. We have now generated a notification that tells us that we had a math error. So those are all of the things that we need really to do a service. We have our inbound message, we have our outbound response, and we have the ability to notify. So what I'm going to do, and now this is the cool part, if you have installed Visual Studio, which I really hope you have, and now you can get the C# Express is available for free for anybody. If you're a student, you go to DreamSpark and download the entire suite, full-blown suite for free. So, which is really pretty amazing, Microsoft to do that. But you have to have C# installed, and you have to have installed it before you installed Visual Programming Language, because VPL it builds links between the two. So right now we're assuming that we have VPL installed, and we've eliminated everything in our diagram area except for our activity. And now here's the cool part. We go to build, and we have compile as a service. Click that, and they want a place to put it. So we'll just put it in my projects there. Okay, so we get a warning box comes up, and it says that the main diagram of this project does not contain useful connections, and that's good, because when you build or compile a service, the program takes the entire project and compiles it as a service, and then it takes each individual activity and compiles it as each of those as services, and it kind of clutters things up when you're just trying to build one. So I don't know if there's a better way of doing this, but this is the only way I've really figured out. So I don't want all of that. I just want the activity compiled as a service, and so this is exactly what I want. It comes up, and it has been successfully compiled as a service. Bingo. Now the C# code is out there if you want to go look at it. Of course, auto-generated code is always a little interesting to read, but you really can learn some useful things from that. And so let's see, we have division. Now we can go to view and reload services, because VPL builds its library of services on startup, and so we added a new one. It wouldn't have been there, so by doing that, that was a reload, and that came out in the last version of VPL. So let's look and see if we have it. And there's math division, and right there you can see it picked up the name of the project, math, and it picked up the name of the activity, division. And so that's why naming the project and naming the activity is sort of, you got to coordinate that so it makes sense in your services. And so that is a service now that is always going to be available in your in VPL for you to use anytime you want. So that's step one. I hope that helped. I hope you learned something, and manifests will be next. Thank you.